Hello. So I've got the unenviable task of giving you a bit of an update on the new features in Revit 2017. I immediately start off with an apology. Coming from an architectural background, I may not be able to do the improvements to MEP and structures enough justice, but I'll try my best. Can we just have a quick show of hands of disciplines in the office, so in here today? So architects, probably about 3/4 maybe. Structures, okay, they all seem to be congregated around the front here. MEP, okay. Client, contractor, okay, we've got a few. Okay, good. Any other QS? No, didn't think so. Okay. Right, so I'm just going to kind of run through these, and I may be able to answer questions on the architecture and to a certain extent some of the structure stuff, but certainly not the MEP stuff. So you're on your own on that one. So this is a nice little list of the features that have been added in 2017. Anybody who's used 2016 and the R2 update that was subscription, there's quite a few of the features that have also been included as well within here that I don't think are actually included on this list. But instead of me going through all that, we're just going to crack on. So we'll start off with the architects. So what they've done, they've introduced depth queuing. Can we have a show of hands? Anybody see my problem session? The other, I think, was it potentially last time with regards to how to do depths in your elevation? Well, it's almost like Autodesk kind of heard that, because shortly afterwards they introduced this. This new feature, they've introduced it in 2017. And what this allows you to do, it allows you to add depth to your elevations without having to go around nasty workarounds like I demonstrated last time. So I'll just give a quick demo about how this one works. It's actually quite a nice feature, and it works very differently from the demo that I showed. So I have a standard building elevation or a series, an example here where we have a series of buildings on a site and there's some context in the distance. And how do we go about using this depth queuing feature? Well, it's located under the graphics and display options. And then we have depth queuing located here, and I'll just turn this on. And you can see that we've got a fade from start to end in terms of distance, and then we've got the amount of fade as well. So initially, if I turn this on, because of the way the model's been set up, we're starting to see some results here. But we can start adjusting some of these by pulling these a little bit further back, and you see pretty quickly you see reasonable results. And you notice as well, this is actually, let's say there's probably about 500 or 600 megs worth of projects here. So you can see how this building, you can start appreciating depth without having to spend an awful lot of time adjusting it, or with nasty workarounds trying to adjust line weights across link files. This one, like I say, is made up of about, I think there's 6 link files in this one, so it does make life a lot easier, and hopefully we should see some further improvements to this as it kind of goes on. Hosting of railings. Anybody who's used railings historically has probably been quite frustrated with the inability to only host to certain objects. Floors and stairs, I think, has been previous limit, but now you can attach it to things like your roofs and your floor edges, and also previously you couldn't do to floors, and also to tops of walls as well. So as you can see within the demo here, it gives you far better opportunity to do things like site railings, or if you had some kind of crazy features like the ones demonstrated here, or visualized here, it should make things a lot easier for you.
They won't go to top over.
Not yet, no. I may do a tips and tricks next time on that to show how to do that. So topos are still useless within Revit. I can tell you that's a bit of a spoiler for the rest of the presentation. But this is pretty straightforward and easy to use. It's the same way that historically the railing tool has worked, where you draw the line of it, and then you just click attach, and then click the object, and then it will just follow the line of it.
So do you select a plane, or is it you just put a plane like that is there? Has the wall been edited in profile and then top face?
Yeah. Let's see. I'll try to. I hadn't planned on doing a live demo on this one, so. Great. Is that the wall? Is it structures? Oh, sorry, that is, yeah. No, it is the wall. Yeah, I'm all right. I'll keep it simple. Okay, so that's where you'd normally have it, and then pick host, and pick that, attaches to the top. Okay, so pick host is the same way you do it to a stair. So they've essentially just increased the functionality of it. Yeah, if you look at the that demo image, you can see that this floor here is, all the edges have been brought up, so I presume it will work within along that edge as well. Which makes me wonder why they probably couldn't make it work with topos, because it's still working across triangulated surfaces. But that's potentially for another release. Anybody use Formit within here? 1, 2? No, just 2. Okay. Formit is essentially a product that they do a free version and also a paid version, which essentially is Autodesk's equivalent of SketchUp. And if you've used it and you've used SketchUp, you'll see that they've taken a few ideas from SketchUp in building it. It's very intuitive. It's a case of kind of drawing lines in kind of SketchUp fashion and then kind of extruding it to form shapes and masses. What they've done within 2017, they've integrated a plugin that allows you to import those Formit sketches that you've generated perhaps on in your browser or on your phone or on your iPad, and you can now integrate those directly into Revit. So this actually, for me, I think gives quite a good opportunity or exciting developments really in terms of the conceptual. Matt touched on it very briefly with regards to barriers to adoption and Revit and the conceptual side. I see this as a real kind of opportunity to kind of push the boundaries for this, where you end up with a hybrid model where you have some Formit elements, and then you have parts of your building that have been explored in a little bit more detail. I think it's pretty exciting and something that I'd like to explore a little bit further. So the plugin for this is based on the add-ins tab, and also as well there's the ability to import SketchUp families into your or SketchUp components into your families, which I have tried. And depending on the complexity and how well the family has been built in SketchUp, there's varying success. Over the years, Autodesk have spent a lot of time and money acquiring companies and developing conceptual energy analysis. And they've introduced a new product now called Insight 360, and this is integrated within Revit as well, and allows kind of on-the-fly energy analysis for your building. And I don't know whether it allows has anybody used Saphira? Okay, so we've got a few hands popping up. That's another kind of conceptual analysis platform as well, and it seems like this is built on a kind of a similar vein, so you can do kind of daylighting analysis and kind of energy analysis, that sort of thing, and it's visualized within your model as well. Okay, global parameters. This is something that popped up. This isn't just an architectural enhancement. This is something that can be made available or utilized by everybody within across disciplines. Did anybody have a play around with this with the R2? I know it was included as part of that. Okay. I must admit, I knew it was there, but I never really had the time to have a play around with it. But what I'll do, and I'd probably agree with Mike with the things I was testing this morning, it still needs a little bit of work, but I'll give you a quick demo. Essentially, what it allows you to do is, if you've ever built families, you know that you can associate parameters to lengths and materials and various other parts within your families. Now they've moved some of that functionality or the ability to do that into the project environment. And what this allows you to do is kind of link together isolated or kind of disparate elements within your model and control them by settings that are kind of hosted kind of centrally. I'll just give a little bit of a demo of that. Okay, so very, very simple kind of demo of the kind of capabilities really of this, or where you can kind of start moving with it. We've just got a very simple kind of shape here for this building. And it basically uses, if you want to use kind of length, dimensions, that sort of thing, essentially you select your dimension that you've dimensioned up. I'll just delete that and just show you. It works in exactly the same way as you would a normal dimension. So there's nothing particularly fancy about that. Select the dimension, and then there's a new section on the ribbon for label dimension, and this is associated with the global parameters. Pull down, there's some that I've already defined, but if you want to add a new one, just click create parameter. And this, anybody who's built families, this is very similar to the kind of environment that you will be used to there. So I'm going to call this overall length. And you can see now that when I select this, that we've now got this pencil here that says it's a global parameter. And if I click on that, it opens up this dialog. And again, this might seem familiar to type properties inside families. If you adjust these parameters here, click apply, your building will adjust. So what this allows you to do is start adding additional relationships between parts of your building. And again, in a similar way to your project, your family environment, you can start adding things like formulas as well. So I've just got, I'll do the same here with this one. It doesn't like that one. So this is kind of pretty much an example of where you get issues when you're setting it up. But once you've kind of set up these parameters, I'll turn it. You can show the labels, so it makes it clear which ones are controlled by global parameters. Within the manage and global parameters here, you can start setting up relationships between different elements. So we could say actually the width of the building needs to be proportional to the overall length. So we can take the length, input that there, and then times that by let's see, 0.7. Click apply. So now we've set up this relationship between the length and width. So as the length increases, it doesn't like that at all. Let's do it through here instead. So your building kind of changes, but this could be linked to anything. In terms of the types of parameters that you can create in terms of global parameters, you have a whole host of things within here. So I kind of envisage things like materials. You could select a whole bunch of families that have instance-based materials and then assign them to a global parameter. Yeah, James? Yeah, well, I tested this earlier on today, and when I had this set up, I was kind of expecting the building to just go out like that, but it kind of just went out on one side, which was a little kind of counterintuitive. But if you pin elements, then I haven't found a way as yet to do it any other way than that. But I'm wondering if you do pin things, whether that will start messing up other relationships. Yeah, so you have like side 1 and side 2. Yeah. So probably, yeah. Let's see.
You can only do it to, you can't do it to share practice.
No.
You can't do it to manage practices. So one of the good opportunities for this tool is to have things like, say, a pipe measured to a wall, and the space should be 2 times pipe diameter, but you can't pick up the pipe diameter measured to. You can't pick up anything from a family, hence why it's not all that useful. It's kind of a good tool, but very hard to develop.
When you are taking which parameters you are taking
No, I think the separate, just going into there and creating a new parameter, it does appear to be separate, that you can't have. It doesn't say what type it is. If we're going to project parameters, it only has project parameters and shared parameters. No, it should be parameter types. If it was anywhere, it would be here. Yep. I don't think it's something that's schedulable.
Not using Dynamo, no, but probably will.
But as an example of a family, for example, this one here, where we have the sill height, where you see this little box here, this allows you to associate it to something within within a global parameter. So as I said, it's similar for materials. If you have, I don't know, for whatever reason, you might want to lift your doors up or something like that, then you'll be able to do that. So basically anything that contains this box is something that you can associate a parameter to. So whether it has instance space, I don't know, but it's not intelligent enough to work on. I don't think it's going to be intelligent enough to do things like pipe positions. And introducing all those constraints across your model will probably kill it. Okay. Okay, so I think there's room for improvement for this, but certainly it's quite an interesting development. Performance-wise, we've been assured, based on this graph, that I think if you've used the software since about 2014, and steadily kind of upgraded projects, you could probably see like improvements in terms of performance. Certainly kind of model opening times and kind of orbiting model upgrade times as well, I've noticed is particularly quick on 2017. So they are working particularly hard, and I think I was fortunate enough to go to RTC in last year, and there was a presentation from a gentleman from spent a lot of their time in the last few years working on the performance of the product, essentially trying to reduce the bugs, make it kind of quicker. Whether that's driven by the issues that users are facing, or whether it's for their own selfishness because they're looking to move the product some point to the cloud and it benefits them to make it more efficient, I'll leave it for them to argue that one. Okay, rendering within Revit. Historically, the renderer has been Mental Ray, or it certainly has been for the last few years. They've now removed Mental Ray completely and replaced it with their ray tracer rendering engine, which is supposed to be more realistic and give you nicer results and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see kind of how this sits alongside V-Ray for Revit, which is a plugin that's currently in, I think, beta phase 2 or version 2 now. So certainly we have people within our practice that are testing that at the moment and are saying they're getting some very good results from it. Text editor or text improvements. This is something that has been on, I think, everybody's wish list since probably the beginning of anybody's use of Revit. Now, it's that good I just shot straight past it. So let's give it a test. In terms of what they've done, and again, this is something that was explained at RTC. They spent, apparently, it wasn't just as simple as just adding a few extra kind of features. It required overhauling of the entire system, which that sort of thing doesn't really work with me. It's something that is kind of long overdue and something that should have worked on. But essentially, when you start adding text, you now have some additional options across here, kind of superscript, subscript, and also let's just paste this text in there. You also get better control of your numbering. You can sub numbers or sub lists by indenting these. You can see that you can start getting something a little bit more developed. This sort of feature just wasn't available in the earlier versions. You can also, as well, if you're one of those companies that require everything to be capitalized or in all caps, then you can just do that. And there's also a nice little keyboard shortcut of Control Shift and A, just to switch between the two. Again, obviously it depends on your preference. Perhaps you're bringing in text from other locations and it's in a format that you prefer not to. And one of the things as well that we've worked on is making sure that the text doesn't change size. You may have noticed that if you kind of zoom in and out, then the amount of text on each line sometimes kind of varies. It's a real kind of strange one historically. Apparently, they've changed that now. Also, as well, when pardon? I don't know how whether that's improved in 2017. I haven't explored it that far. All right. Okay. They've also said as well that it's what you see is what you get as well. Whereas historically, if you open some text, it opens up a completely new window. Now the text opens in the same size that it allows you to edit it. So I can zoom all the way out here and edit it. And if I'm working on a sheet, for example, or I'm annotating something, I don't have to finish editing, and then find out actually that it's too long.
One thing you've got to watch for it, because it did rewrite it all, is that if you upgrade from an earlier version of Revit to 2017,
Yeah.
you lose all the text all over the place. You have to spend hours putting it all back manually.
So word of warning there for upgrading your projects. Just employ somebody to check every single sheet. Calculations in annotations. I'm conscious of time, so I'm not going to run through every single one in terms of demoing, but they've added the ability to use in a similar way in schedules where you can do calculated values. They've added that inside tags as well now. Dynamo. Can I have a show of hands for Dynamo users, people who've opened it, looked at it? So yeah, we're probably just short of half. Well, they've integrated that within Revit now. It's now located on the Manage tab. But unfortunately, when they shipped it, they shipped an older version. So it's as soon as you install 2017, your Dynamo version is going to be obsolete. It's version 0.9.1. Whether if that's something your company's using, then that's great. You could always upgrade it through the usual route, going through dynamobim.org. Creating families or sketches, that sort of thing, where you have circles or you have radiused edges to elements. You can now lock these in place. Just give a bit of a demo for that. So you now see a padlock here on the corners that just allow you to lock that. So that essentially means that if I'm not sure whether, yeah, there you go. So if this is actually quite a nice feature, that if you're rotating something, it maintains this tangent here, which is actually quite nice. So you no longer have to, inside families, have to control this using other parameters or just. I don't know. You'll have to explore. Just to save time, otherwise we'll be here all night. Schedule improvements. This is actually quite a nice one. Again, this is one that's potentially can be used for everybody. The ability to combine text parameters. Anybody who's used calculated values historically, it would have been really nice to include calculated values to allow for text. Well, they've introduced something called a combined parameter. So I have a schedule here, door schedule, and you remember the days when you just found out something in Excel, then you would have something that would say width times length or width times height, something like that. You can now do this within schedules, and they've added an extra little button here. This opens up a dialog. You essentially just add the parameters that you want to appear in there. So I'm going to say door leaf width and height. Got that the right way around. You add your separator. Give it a name. Size. And then you end up with values like this on the right hand side. I'm not 100% sure whether you can include calculated values in that as well or not. I haven't tested that. But certainly you can kind of play around with that, and you can again group things, and just essentially it makes it a lot easier rather than having to push things out to Dynamo or other pieces of software to get things in. So it's kind of giving you an intelligent relationship between parameters within your model. Okay, structures. This is where it all falls down. Sorry, no pun intended there. Reinforcement connectors. They've made improvements to those, as you can see. I will demo some of the structural things. Rebar, they've improved, or they've added the ability to change the spacing of your rebar, so you can increase it towards the end, and it will now work with non-standard shapes. I think detailing rebar within Revit has been something that historically a lot of structural engineers that I speak to are very reluctant to do because of the capabilities. But potentially, this is, I'm not saying it's all fixed and fine and dandy. I think probably this is probably the starting point to kind of further developments. They've added the ability to kind of graphically change or graphically manipulate the position of rebar. So if you have a section, for example, you can select that rebar, and then you can adjust the value and kind of bring it in a little bit. So it gives you, basically, they've added the more kind of delicate controls. Fabric reinforcing. This is. Could it do stuff like this previously? Anybody? Okay, so I've got a video for this.
When placing fabric reinforcement sheets, you can
There we
now
go.
sketch bent sheets to accommodate different shapes for concrete hosts. You can later edit them to adjust any change. This gives you more accurate and completed detailing and documentation of structural elements.
Okay, so nice little demo there. So you can see that they're starting to listen to what people are saying, that you will keep as much as possible inside Revit, and obviously this is going a little bit towards that. Structural connectivity. They've introduced something, a node essentially that can exist where components, beams, columns, etc., intersect or join. And what this allows you to do, as I was exploring this, it starts off initially as this generic connection, and this essentially works as a placeholder, so you can attach design information, design data to it. So you may start off initially talking about kind of the design intent, that sort of thing, as the kind of model develops. And then further down the line, that moves from your structural connectivity into the connections themselves. So I'm just going to demonstrate this. So fingers crossed on this one. It's actually quite a nice, I found this quite nice. I've previously used there's a Revit extensions tool that was available on subscription for doing junctions and connections. This is far better than that was. So just kind of combining those two together under the structures tab. We have a new button here now for connections. So clicking that, if you click, you select your elements, click enter, you can see that it adds an object. This is that generic connection that I was talking about. And I'm just going to go to it appears that Rob doesn't have something installed that's installed on my laptop. So I may not be able to demonstrate this. Bear with me a second, I might have a video. No, unfortunately, I think there's something missing off this version. I'm really sorry because it's actually a really nice feature. Let's see what we've got in the image. Essentially, the process, the way it works, you select that, and then you convert it from a generic connection in the type selector. You just pull down and select the connection type. You then modify the parameters, which shows you kind of plate size, the number of bolts, positions of the size of the haunch, that sort of thing. And then straight away it will build that connection in place for you, as the kind of the image kind of demonstrates here. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm unable to demonstrate that. Maybe able to, if I switch over laptop for the second half, I might be able to just demonstrate it very quickly with mine. Again, they've introduced the ability to be able to switch to split columns. Again, this ties in with the connections. They've also introduced more content. I'm not 100% sure how much this will affect a lot of people in the UK, but if you tend to do work across Europe and across the world, there are additional libraries now available. And foundations, you can now attach columns to foundations themselves, to custom foundations and various of the isolated foundations is what I was looking for, and those will change with it. So again, it's improving that connectivity between objects. MEP. So anybody use the fabrication elements in 2016? That was one of the big wins in there. They introduced they purchased, was it CAD MEP, and they've been kind of working in the background on the best way to integrate this within their software. They didn't go kind of 100% within 2016, and people I've spoke to were saying that it didn't quite go enough. You couldn't annotate or you couldn't tag elements. But they've gone a little bit further in 2017, and they've really gone out to improve the kind of fabrication side. And you can now, I've been reliably informed that you can now tag and annotate these fabrication elements. So let's see. They've added ability to take individual parts and then switch those parts out for fabrication elements. I can't demonstrate this because you need to have additional fabrication software installed that I didn't have installed on mine. So I do have a couple of videos. I'll keep this quick. So.
To prepare a model for detailed coordination modeling and construction, you can now convert design level of detail model elements to construction level of detail elements using the design to fabrication tool. The design to fabrication tool will present a list of potential related services for selected design level of detail duct and pipe elements. The converted elements are generated according to the rules defined in the fabrication services. This enables you to more quickly iterate from a design level of detail model to a fabrication level of detail model using manufacturable content in both pipe and duct.
So they say. Whether
to prepare a model.
Go away. I have various other ones as well, but essentially it demonstrates a similar sort of thing, that you can select elements and you can switch them from the kind of generic or the built-in kind of Revit elements, and those can then kind of migrate over to the fabrication stuff. This presentation may be shared. Yeah. So we'll put this on the website that will outline it, and if you need sort of hanger improvements as well, anybody who actually includes those within their models, if certainly in terms of if it's one of their BIM deliverables, in terms of adding it in terms of the content inside the model, then this might be a reassuring sight for them. They've improved the ability to do your calculations, made them a little bit more realistic, which again is something that MEP engineers that I've spoken to have complained that it's what actually comes out of the model isn't particularly accurate. Again, scheduling, the ability to link, well, you can read. Unfortunately, this means absolutely nothing to me. I'm sure for the MEP guys, they're probably jumping up and down in the skins. So yeah, I suppose the scalability improvements. So the ability, certainly for me in terms of auditing stuff, not seeing duplicate type marks. By default, it won't add a type mark to elements, which I think is quite nice. Reduces the number of errors if you're auditing models, and so that you have to immediately discount. And that's it. So if you want to know more about those, especially the MEP stuff, don't come speaking to me. There's plenty of resources available on the internet. If you go on YouTube, the Autodesk Autodesk have a channel on there, and they have all these little videos, and they're all about 1 or 2 minutes long, and they kind of demonstrate they explain some of these features. So good luck and good hunting if you get to use it.